What I wanted to know is when you knew Jason Witten was serious about returning to football.
Well, we had some early talks, Super Bowl time talks, and a little time before then. I have to go back to when Jason made the decision to not play football, and that was such a tough decision. I must really say he never totally bought into the idea of never playing again. He always knew that, boy, if not now, then maybe never more, and probably never more as a player. So his initial decision to go to the broadcast booth was a tough one for him and Michelle, his wife. So it was not surprising at all when he came in and he said, I want to play. I want to be, quote, back in the dirt. I don't think I've ever met a player that really wants to do the hard physical things, not take the easy way out that Jason Garrett wants to do that makes a football player. That's what he's about, and that's what he misses the most.
So can we call Jason Witten a coach in waiting?
Well, I think you can, because he's obviously, and by the way, that's always been there. And it's always his style has been there. He is John Wayne, and he's John Wayne in our dressing room. He's John Wayne on the one-on-one drills in the end zone in the dark, rough days of two-a-days. So he's the real deal. And I like that for football. I like to think about that's what's going to be here in the future, whether it's on the field or coaching.
Yeah, Jerry, you have a real good football team. I mean, you have the 5 most important positions on your roster really taken care of. You have a quarterback. You have a pass rusher. You have a number 1 wideout. You have a corner. You have a left tackle. And you have young players, and they're on the rise, and you guys are knocking on the door now in the NFC. What do you want Jason to bring as far as you talk about that John Wayne? What do you want him to teach these young guys to get them to where you've already been, which is to the promised land, to the Super Bowl? How do you see him kind of helping those guys in that way, even more so than what he will do on the football field?
After a tough loss, we had a player that was going back and forth in the dressing room talking about how we weren't winners. We couldn't get it done when the time took. And Jason was sitting over there with his head down and so mad that we had lost. And he said, that's enough. We've all heard that. Sit down. And the player made one more trip down the dressing room. When he turned, Witten had him by the shoulder pads, shook him like a limp doll, and said, you hadn't been here long enough to earn this shit, but in the middle of all of this dressing room.
I like it.
Listen, you've won 3 Super Bowls as an owner. You own the Dallas Cowboys. You have the stadium that everybody's envious of. You're a Pro Football Hall of Famer. But the urgency to win a Super Bowl, because it's been so long since you won the last one, on a scale of 1 to 10, I know you're going to tell me 10, but
yeah.
And I've heard you talk about your own mortality, but is there a different urgency at this time in your life?
Well, that's an unfair question from you, Chris, because you've been with me from almost the first day I got into the NFL. And I go back to that because I had a little money when I bought the Cowboys, and I gave it all up to get to be involved in football. And I didn't give it up to make more money. I'm not here to make money. The money that I make goes back into the stadium and the football team and that type of thing. I'm not here but for one reason, and it's escaped me for all of these years, is to win another Super Bowl. And I've said this tongue-in-cheek, I'd be embarrassed to tell you if it would get it done, the size check that I might write to get a Super Bowl, but it just doesn't work that way.
Well, speaking of money, dollars, I want to mention some names. DeMarcus Lawrence, you're supposed to meet, or Steven or somebody is supposed to meet with his agent tomorrow, correct?
Right. We'll have our team meeting with him. Plus,
you only paid him $17.1 million last year, by the way. Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott, Amari Cooper, Byron Jones. These are guys that are all going to be expecting a pretty good-sized paycheck over this year or next year. Are you ready to spend it? Can you spend it? with the salary cap and all the players you want under your roster?
Yeah, you must have been looking over my shoulder this morning. Right as I got up, I had those same names, and I was adding it up. I could have just taken what I wrote down right before I went to bed, or my noon soup list that I'm making noon. I've got it on my mind. We'll figure it out.
You've got it on your mind, Cowboys fans.
Everybody's talking about Dak Prescott. What is Jerry Jones going to pay Dak Prescott? What do you feel about Dak Prescott relative to the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFL? What do you feel about Dak Prescott? Where do you think he still needs to go to help you get back to where you said you would write that check you'd be embarrassed about if you could get another Super Bowl? What do you think he needs to do for you?
If we were sitting here this afternoon and tomorrow, and he was out on that field getting ready to go in the draft as a quarterback, and I had the #1 pick, that's who'd get that pick in this draft. So that's what I think we're looking at, except we've had 3 years of really getting to know him.
Yep.
We're a fortunate franchise to have Dak Prescott, and we're going to build around him for the future.
What is it? What is it, Jerry, that makes him, that for you and this organization makes him the right guy?
The upside, his willingness to basically every drill improve, how he carries what he's coached up in a meeting, how he carries it to the practice field, and then how he executes it on the field. The thing that we do better, I think, almost than anybody, and I can say it, and then we know it's an opinion, is the 2-minute drill. And we work at it. We'll look at Dak Prescott in the 2-minute drills. Go back and look at all of our 2-minute times since he's been a quarterback in the Dallas Cowboys. He's had repetition after repetition, practice that. We've just got to get him a lot of reps and comebacks. We've got to get him a lot of reps in bunches. We've got to get him a lot of reps going to town. And for a 3-year quarterback, he's had a lot of snaps and a lot of wins.